Hello, I'm Henry. This is John.
Hello.
Thank you very much for giving us the chance to talk to you today. It's been an amazing few years for us since we were given this opportunity to work with all of you in helping to transform the food culture in our schools in this country. We arrived on the scene and it felt a bit like there was quite a lot of inward focus in the sector. People were very passionate about what to do, but there was quite a lot of disagreement about how that should be done. And seeing the way in which the sector has come together and acted with positivity and building a consensus, building a vision about what school food can be, how it can change the lives of all those children in our schools, has been really awe-inspiring and humbling to watch.
You'll remember, if you have good memories, which I'm sure you do because you eat a lot of oily fish, that we came in really sometime after the big earthquake called the Jamie Oliver earthquake. And I think people were still a little bit disorientated at the time. You know, we came on the scene where, at a time when there wasn't really an agreed vision for what everyone wanted to achieve. There certainly wasn't consensus around how it was going to be achieved. There were pockets of excellence which we were able to shine a light on and to help spread. It's a very rare and precious thing now, contrary to where we came in, to have such agreement, rationally, intuitively and passionately about the vision. It's a very rare thing to have that. It's a very rare thing also to have strategy so clear, so bought into, and really so definitively laid out. It's so different from where we came in. It's completely and reassuringly and motivatingly a different picture from when we started this in July 2012. The delivery is now where we need to see continued progress.
So kind of to sum up, where are we versus where we were 10 years ago, 5 years ago, and what do we think needs to happen now? First of all, in terms of where we are, as John said, we have this sense that this is important. Everyone now believes that this is important. It used to be seen 10 years ago sometimes a kind of wishy-washy topic that you focused on because you didn't have the kind of energy to get the maths or the English right in your school. No one believes that now. Everyone at school level, all politicians, everyone in this country understands it's one of the big things that's facing us. And in fact, if you look at all the manifestos, every single political party in the manifesto for this election had school food in their manifesto. So that is the first thing. It's understood this is an important thing for the country. The second thing is that we have, as John said, this shared vision. We've gone into those schools that work, that are doing this well, those leaders who've made this work, and we've seen that they're all doing it in the same way. They are all, it's being led by leaders, they've got a whole school approach, and they're focusing on what the children want, and that works, and it works. Every single school that's doing it well is following that vision. And then finally, we have cleared a lot of the worst food that was in our children's, we were serving to our children from out of schools. There are a lot of schools that have gone from doing bad things to being okay. There are schools that have gone from being okay to being good. And there are schools led by great leaders that have gone from being good to great. And the real challenge now for those people in those schools across this country is to continue that journey. It's hard work to transform the food in a school, but that is what needs to happen. No debate about strategy, no debate about vision, just leaders in those schools improving the food, and critically, after the kind of hiatus, I think, of the universal infant free school meals rollout, making sure that the whole school approach, improving the food education. And if we can improve the food education, those children in your schools will go on not only to eat well in those schools, but to have great lives where they have positive relationships with food, where they're energetic, where they enjoy cooking, and they are able to live fulfilling, healthy, energetic lives, not blighted by the effects of all of the food-related diseases that currently we see in society.
I did an assembly the other day where you should try this. I blindfolded the head teacher and blindfolded the assistant head teacher, and they had to. The kids weren't blindfolded, actually. Oh, the headmaster loved being blindfolded. It is 50 Shades, the 50 Shades school. I think that we were sort of feeding them, thyme, rosemary, garlic, just giving them to smell and to touch, and we did the same with the children. And To see the children actually engaging with herbs and food in that way is it brings us down to the fact that ultimately there are 10 or so million children whose lives are being improved today and as a legacy for the future in further down the road. It's easy to talk about £6 billion of money being spent on diet-related illnesses. It's easy to talk about Ofsted or well, that's not always easy to talk about Ofsted, but it's easy sometimes to talk about Ofsted or to talk about the law and the legislation. All those things are really important supporting elements, but they're only supporting elements to 72,000 leaders who are going to transform the well-being of those 10 million children. And that's the 24,000 head teachers, the 24,000 business school or business managers or bursars, whatever the title they've adopted, and thirdly the 24,000 head cooks or head chefs in those schools. So there's 72,000 people, not the two people sitting here, but 72,000 people who are going to make a difference. And they're going to make a difference if and when they make a commitment to do so. This requires not box ticking, not something superficial to show the Ofsted inspector. This requires a commitment to that journey, and it requires a commitment to creating a culture and an ethos in the school which gives that journey fuel and gives that journey energy and power. And that is what is required for us, for you, to continue.
I was asked the other day what was the most inspirational thing that I'd seen in any school I'd been into. And I think the most moving thing I saw actually happened just a few weeks ago in my son's primary school, state primary school in Hackney, where the head teacher, Louise, has done an amazing job working with a wonderful school cook, Nicole, in transforming the food. And there's a friend of my son, my 7-year-old son, George, who had real problems with eating. She had problems with food. She was very, very underweight, and her parents were having to give her supplements to feed her up, to get her to grow. They were worried about the development of her bones, her organs. Nicole, serving the food to the children and seeing what they like, standing by the bin and seeing what they're throwing away, and talking to this girl, had worked out what it was she enjoyed eating. And for the first time the other day, her parents said that she came back from school and said she'd gone up for seconds and asked for seconds, and she'd never asked for seconds of anything in her life, and she's now eating really well. And that girl's life, it's an example of how an individual life can be transformed by what seem like very simple, but we know are very hard things to do in those individual schools.
The story that Henry's just talked about is replicated across many different schools and many different areas. There's the 1.3 million children who are now eating school food, who aren't eating an unhealthy packed lunch, but are eating a nutritious, healthy, tasty, enjoyable school meal in infants as a result of universal free school meals. There's lots of children who are already eating good school food, who are now eating great school food. There are people who are now enjoying their mornings and are able to concentrate because they've been fed with breakfast clubs. There are children who now can cook savoury dishes where they weren't before. And it's also, in addition to the physical effect that it has on children, it's also part of using food to cement the culture in schools. If you look at all sorts of institutions, all sorts of families, all sorts of groups of friends, it's food that brings people together, and it's one of the reasons why the pilots were so successful. It's one of the reasons why we're seeing transformation in school food, in culture in schools. I'd encourage every head teacher who doesn't eat with the children to do so, to cement those relationships with the children, and to recognise the fact that we have a fantastic opportunity to help people to remember their right relationship with each other, and also the right relationship that they have with nature and with the planet. And that is a major additional legacy of the school food plan. Of course, all of this comes down to an 8-year-old or a 14-year-old standing in front of a chef, deciding what to eat today. And it comes back to the pleasure they're going to have from eating the food and the pleasure they're going to have from hanging out with their mates. How it's going to impact how they feel afterwards. It's going to impact how well they do in their exams, all of these 10 million individuals. And it's going to impact their relationship with food from now on. And it's going to have a massive bearing on how well they live and their health as they grow older. That's a massively positive legacy that you guys have got.
So what does the school food plan look like from here on in? Well, I can tell you what it isn't. It's not a centrally run initiative. It's not a document that sits on the shelf. What it is the efforts of those leaders going on that journey to transform the food culture in those schools. And what can we all do to help them? What can you do? What can we do? Well, I'd bring it back to the most powerful principle of the work that we think we did in the school food plan, which is the idea of positivity, which is every day in those schools looking at how you can positively make a difference, not focusing on everything that could go wrong, all the potential pitfalls, but focusing on that experience for those children and how each day you can make it better.
So let's bring this back to the only place that this really matters, which is your school. And I think there's a question that you might want to ask yourself, which is, are you one of those leaders who is going to make the commitment to create a golden age for food in your school? Are you the leader who's going to think about this in the bath, who's going to put their hands up in staff meetings to get this on the agenda? The person that's going to make sure that the school chef is at parents' evenings, or the fact that make sure that the children are growing food and eating that food in the canteen and using that food to cook savoury dishes? Is that you? And if you are one of those leaders, fantastic. Or, which is perfectly fine too, your role is to support, your role is to cheerlead, your role is to feed that person ideas and inspiration, to clap when they do things well. Is that your role? Lincoln said, whatever you are, be a good one. And that is what we are encouraging you to do, to make sure that you're a good one in your school.
We hope you've had a fantastic day today. We hope you've learned some things and that you can go back to your schools energised and buzzing with new ideas. You're doing an absolutely amazing thing. Good luck.